So the first phase of cloud computing security is focused on understanding your current state and accessing risk. Using cloud security solution that allow for cloud monitoring, you can accomplish the following steps. So inside this particular phase, which is called understand cloud usage and risk, there are many steps that we need to follow. The first steps under this is called identify sensitive or regulated data. So first of all, we have to find out that what are the data which are sensitive data and what are the data which are non-sensitive data, so that we can do a specific classification between those data. So the sensitive data, we can incorporate them either in the private cloud, or we can provide more security to those sensitive data. So that is your first step. The second step is understand how sensitive data is being accessed and shared. So once we find out like which one is the sensitive data, then we have to think of that how the sensitive data will be shared among different users of the cloud in the organization, and how we are providing the access mechanism of those sensitive data. So we should have a good access control mechanism, and we should have a permission way of providing the data to the users, so that we can easily able to monitor that which data will be used by which particular user, so that the auditing will be easier, and the sensitive data which is used by the user will also be protected and monitored. So this is the second step of understanding cloud usage and risk. The third step that will follow is discover shadow IT, unknown cloud use. So let's say in your organization, somebody is using the cloud infrastructure, but from the cloud infrastructure, they are going to some sites which are not secure, or some proxy server or some firewall they can go through, which is not secure. So we have to look for all the users who are using the uh, cloud infrastructure. We have to restrict their accessing from the cloud. So once a user will get a virtual system or virtual infrastructure, so they can browse anything, they can go any site. So that type of uh, independency we have to monitor and we have to restrict, so that any malfunction, any viruses, any malware could not come to the virtual machines that will be used by any organization. So always we have to discover the shadow IT there. Then audit configuration for infrastructure as a service such as AWS and Azure. Now these infrastructure as a service require different critical settings, right? And if we do not configure them perfectly, it may lead for different weaknesses. So always we have to configure the infrastructure as a service in such a way so that the vulnerability could be reduced, the weaknesses could be reduced, and overall security could be managed. Next step here is uncover malicious user behavior. So we have to look for our employees who are using the cloud infrastructure, and we have to monitor their behavior so that any malicious activity could not be taken place by those users. If we find out like any users are involved with any malicious activity, so we can restrict them to using the cloud infrastructure.